unidentified flying objects. The idea of UFOs, extraterrestrials, aliens, that has been a part of human culture for generations, centuries, millennia, from curious cave paintings to legends about some ancient architecture that has been influenced by aliens, curious lights in the sky. They existed long before commercial airliners were dotting the skies at night. In 1947, a supposed UFO crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, sparking a whole new fascination and interest with UFOs. Then they were in movies, Little Green Men from Mars, visits from UFOs, crop circles, things like that. They led to the next natural step, which was interaction with these beings. In the 21st century, as of now, there have been hundreds and hundreds of documented alien abduction stories. Whether you believe them or not is totally up to you. However, the first of these documented alien abductions took place in 1961 and took place in New England in the northern part of the state of New Hampshire. And that's what we're going to talk about now, the alien abduction story of Betty and Barney Hill. Betty and Barney Hill lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and in September of 1961, after being married for about 16 months, they decided to finally go on their honeymoon trip, which included going out to Niagara Falls, New York, and then up to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. The trip was pleasant, if not uneventful, for the relatively newlywed couple until they started their descent south back towards their home. On September 19th, they were heading south through the small town of Lincoln, New Hampshire. And if any of you have been to Lincoln, New Hampshire, it's a beautiful little town that I'll cover at some point on this podcast. But at night, it's very, very dark and very, very desolate. Heading southeast through Vermont into New Hampshire, late at night on September 19th, they were trying to beat a rainstorm home. They assumed they would get back to Portsmouth around 2 a.m., so it was very late at night when they were driving through Lincoln. As they headed south, they spotted a curious light in the sky that they thought might be a falling star. Barney was a World War II veteran, so he thought there was nothing to worry about, so they kept pressing on, but the light followed them. It zigged and zagged with the curves of the road. Although when you drive at night when you're a kid, you think the moon is chasing you, how it moves along with the car. So I could see where the couple would think this is just an illusion, that this light is just playing tricks. At one point on the drive, their curiosity got the better of them, and they pulled over. Betty used a pair of binoculars to look at the light, which appeared to be a white light that was spinning, and she told Barney that he was ridiculous if he thought that this was a plane or a falling star. They pressed on a little further with the light following them, but eventually the worry started to get the better of them. They pulled over. Barney stepped out of the car. He had a handgun with him. By this time, the light was about 100 feet above them in the sky, and it was silent. There was no noise that could make, like a helicopter. It was just silently spinning above them. Barney would later say that the object was as big as a jet, but round and flat like a pancake, and it blew his mind what he saw. In the windows were little gray men all standing and staring down at him. With these little gray uniformed aliens in the windows staring at him, Barney lost it and ran back to the car to get out of there because he realized they were probably about to be captured. And they barreled down the road trying to escape this light in the darkness of this New Hampshire highway. They both heard loud rhythmic beeps coming from the area of the car's trunk, and at that point, both the couple lost consciousness. When they came to back in the car, it was 2 hours later than they remember, and they were 35 miles down the road from where they last remembered driving. They did arrive home in Portsmouth, but couldn't shake the feeling that that was more than just some sort of a dream. In the weeks and months that followed, Betty started reading up books about UFOs. After Betty started having these horrible, vivid nightmares, and Barney developed an ulcer from stress, they decided to get help, and they went to a therapist named Benjamin Simon. It was during these sessions that the couple were both hypnotized separately and recalled the events of that evening, and both their stories matched up. And with a little help piecing together the events of the story, this is what apparently occurred that night. A vessel landed down on top of the car, put the couple to sleep, and a few of these uniformed gray aliens walked them up onto the ship where they were separated. They were both subject to basic medical examinations, including samples being taken of their hair, fingernails, skin scrapings. Betty had a 4 to 6 inch needle injected into her abdomen. It was basically a pregnancy test. There was one alien that both of them referred to as the leader, who seemed to be kind of in charge. One of the aliens explained to Betty where they were from, although I guess he kind of said if she didn't know anything about the universe, it would be kind of pointless to tell her where they were from. But with help, she kind of drew a map of where their planet was. Both of the couple reiterated that the aliens were not really hostile, more curious, and eventually they let them go and they went home. And so with the help of Benjamin Simon, they pieced together what had happened to them on that night in September 1961. The big change came, though, in 1965 when their story was published in a Boston newspaper, and suddenly everyone was interested in this story of alien abduction. It was the first real documented one. They were the subjects of a book. They were also portrayed in a movie with James Earl Jones playing Barney. And of course, when it comes to UFOs and alien abduction, opinion is split, where some people believe it, some people don't. The thing that always gets me about this story is the fact that Betty and Barney were an interracial couple in the early 1960s, which makes me think, why would they want to draw attention to themselves when just the fact that they were married would be a cause of a lot of problems for some people in the country? The Betty and Barney Hill story, though, kind of paved the way for the way that aliens and alien abductions were portrayed, not just in regular life, but in the media, in movies and books, with the examinations and such. Their story, their abduction, was not the first ever to be documented, but it was the most in-depth that was documented at the time, especially for 1961. If it wasn't an alien spacecraft that abducted the Hills on that deserted road in New Hampshire in 1961, other experts say it could have been something sleep paralysis, hallucinations from a long drive late at night, but that's all subjective. It's all up to you what you think and what you believe. Barney died young at the age of 46 in 1969. Betty lived on and lived a much longer life, and she remained very deeply connected to the UFO community, going to UFO vigils routinely. She spent the rest of her years still living in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, before dying in 2004 at the age of 85. Throughout all of the publicity and the scrutiny which came after the story went public, Betty and Barney Hill never changed their story one bit. They remained steadfast that they were abducted by aliens that night in 1961, with Betty saying that she was visited several more times in the decades that followed after that initial abduction. If you want to learn more about Betty and Barney Hill, there's plenty of information on the internet. There's files about their hypnosis and what was there and different things like that. But that is the story of the first real huge documented case of supposed alien abduction. And it occurred right here in New England, in New Hampshire, in the northern part in Lincoln.